Hey everyone, welcome to the Sarah's podcast. I'm your host for today's episode, Stelios, the founder and director of Sarah's. In this episode, we're thrilled to have Mark Polley, co-owner of John Dory's Fish and Chip Group in Northern Ireland. Well, Belfast in fact, but Northern Ireland nonetheless. Mark brings a wealth of knowledge about the industry, particularly the unique challenges faced by businesses in Northern Ireland. With 7 outlets under his belt, our conversation is insightful as we explore the differences between mainland UK and Northern Ireland. Genuinely, I'd love to have Mark on the Sarah's podcast again. He's a really good talker and he knows the difficulties that challenge a business, but also he's really optimistic at the same time. So, take a moment to go find the Sarah's Podcast discussion group on Facebook. We're here to spice things up and addressing pressing matters from the industry as well. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Sarah's Super Absorbent Cloths. These cloths are not just any kitchen tool, they're designed to increase the quality of your fish and chip game with superior absorbency and unmatched durability. Forget those flimsy towels that you get from the shop. The Sarah's Super Absorbent Cloths are engineered to revolutionise your kitchen tasks, whether it's prepping fish to achieve that perfect crispy batter or cleaning up your workspace. These cloths handle it all, effortlessly absorbing spills and wiping surfaces clean without a scratch. They're reusable, eco-friendly and built to last through the toughest cleanups. We have customers using these for 6 months at a time, obviously washable. Don't just take our word for it. Lauren, a verified 5-star reviewer, shares her experience. We use the super absorbent cloth to dry fish before we pre-dust them. They effectively remove moisture, allowing the just amount of pre-dust to adhere, creating a perfect barrier between oil and fish. To experience the magic of the Sarah's Super Absorbent Cloth for yourself, visit sarahs.shop for next day free delivery across mainland UK. Stay connected with all things that Sarah's do by following us on social media and joining our mailing list, which you'll find the links on in our episode show notes. If you're enjoying the podcast, share it with your friends and colleagues in the industry, and don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Now, let's jump into my discussion with Mark Polley from John Dory's. Mark, welcome to the Sarah's podcast.
Hi, Stelios. Thank you for inviting me.
It's so great to finally have you on. There's a lot we want to discuss, you being over the pond, slightly over the pond, a little pond, and we just want to know how you do things over that side. So tell us a little bit about John Dory's and how it came about.
Okay, well, I worked originally as a civil engineer in my early 20s. And really by default, my boss had called me in one day. I was working in Northern Ireland, and my boss called me in one day and said, "Look, Mark, there's a good chance you're going to be made redundant within the next 9 months." Just there was a downturn in the construction industry at that stage. So he said, "Now I have somebody who's looking for somebody to go out and work in Iraq." So literally a week or 10 days later, I left Belfast and I was out working in Iraq. And I was there less than a year, probably 8 or 9 months. Left because the contract came to an end, and then when I went home, I got a call from somebody I'd worked with and said, "Would you like to come out and work in Saudi?" So I went out there and I did about 3.5 years out there, which was probably long enough. It was great for amassing a bit of capital. It gave me an opportunity to, have a bit of independence, which was good. So very quickly, I got a call from my sister-in-law to say, my sister-in-law had been a hotel manageress and had ran the Woodlands Hotel in Lisburn. She'd given it up to raise her young family, but was remaining doing bookkeeping for a gentleman in Belfast, just outside Belfast. So she was continuing with the bookkeeping. He decided to sell the business. It consisted of a restaurant and a takeaway. The takeaway would have been probably 400 square feet at the most. It was tiny, really tiny. Wow. But anyway, we bought it. It cost us £10,000 at the time. And we sort of combined our resources. Linda had a bit of skill. I had no knowledge of catering. I could cook scrambled eggs, probably, and that was about the height of it. So we bought the shop and we ran with that. That was 1984, around this time, 40 years ago. And we ran it for a couple of years. We took it on, I think we were doing about £2,500 a week. Probably the funniest thing was when we took it on as a going concern. There was no range in it. It would have been Blue Seal fryers and a griddle, and we had a more limited menu. But over the period, we wondered why our electricity bills were so low, and we could never see an extraction vent outside for the flue for the extraction system. So when we delved into it further, we found that the previous owner had hot wired the shop off the spar next door. And the extraction system went through our wall and into his roof space, and that was as far as it went. So we had a very, very low electric bill. Now, we did eventually correct that, but and the extraction we did take across his roof and out the side entrance. But that's what we took on. We had a manageress then, Jean Skeets, and Jean is still alive today. Jean's about 81, and a superb manager. She stayed with us for the rest of her working life, really, one of her perks as a retired manager is she gets free fish and chips for life.
Nice. That's awesome, though. I think one of the things that I noticed spending time with you in Belfast is the close connection that your staff seem to have with you. It's like over the years you've nurtured this really... it's not contrived at all. I go to a lot of shops and you hear all of these marketing terms and we're all here for each other. And I know people do mean that, but actually spending time with you and your team, I can see that there is an actual real relationship. Like, what do you sort of put that down to?
I think communication is probably the most important thing. And, as well as good manners and to get the best out of your staff, you can be an authoritarian manager and you can go in and shout and bellow, or you can do it by example and by persuasion. And I think all the directors have been better. We all still work hard. The staff know we work hard, and we expect the same from them. That said, I've just had a quick look before the podcast, and I think we've 6 members of staff who've worked with us for over 20 years. We're probably sitting at the minute with around 100 staff. It fluctuates a little bit, but give or take 100 staff. So we have a band within the 20-year category. We certainly have a large band within the 10-year plus category. And we hate losing staff. We lost a girl a couple of weeks ago, a manager. She decided she wanted to change. But to be fair, she came to me at 16 and she left as a granny. So,
wow.
She had done her stint. And she just wants to try. She wants a bit more time with her family. She, like everybody in our industry, nobody wants to work weekends. Nobody wants to work Saturday nights, Friday nights, Sundays. But that's the nature of the beast. We're open probably 363 days a year. We closed Christmas Day, Boxing Day. This year, for the first time in about 5 years, we closed New Year's Day. We opened Easter Sunday. But we opened in limited opening hours. But apart from that, we're open the rest of the year. So I think in answer to your question, I think it's trying to treat your staff with respect. Everybody needs downtime. If you stick somebody on a shift and you ask them to work, 5 nights a week, they're going to get fed up with that. So, you try to get a balance between, a practical workload and getting the best out of the staff. Equally, staff can't work 60 hours a week. You just don't get any productivity out of them at that level. So I think communication, treat your staff with respect, try to keep your premises as nice an environment as possible. The winter time it can be cold, and at the start in the summertime it can be too warm. It's a hard environment to work in, and I think we try to show a bit of empathy with the staff and realize that we've all done it, we've all worked it, and it is hard work.
100%. So you come back from Iraq, and then you immerse yourself in this completely new business, and it completely foreign to you, as in the businesses. How do you go about the learning curve, learning as much as you can straight away to make sure that the decisions you're making are sort of on the right path?
Well, I think firstly our business combination was good. Linda had good experience working in a hotel environment, which is hard work as well, particularly growing up in the Troubles. I mean, on a number of occasions, Linda was held up at gunpoint and things like that there. So, it was a hard environment in those days. Stephen's background is forensic accounting. So Stephen has always been very sharp in the accounts and remains so. He's reluctant probably to pass that mantle on to somebody else at this stage, but he's the best person for the job. I suppose our roles have evolved over the years. I had to learn to cook fairly quickly. I had a good manager in Jean, and we had a more limited menu. So when we opened the chip shop in 1984, within 5 years, we'd moved to a new shopping centre, and we opened about an 80-seater restaurant and relocated our chip shop. So we started off as the Copper Kettle was the first chip shop. We moved across to the new shopping centre, and we ended up with Rumbles, which I suppose was a derivative of Tommy Rumbles, really, but I think that's where it came from. And we opened a restaurant called Rick's, and we actually, I was going to say, you look behind me, but I have sort of the Casablanca theme behind me, So the restaurant, again, was a great learning curve. We probably focused more on the restaurant from 1989 for a number of years than we did with the takeaway. And I know within that period, I wouldn't say we took shortcuts, but we would look for efficiencies by way of, buying in fish that was at good price as opposed to the best quality. So there were things like that. You developed your experience over time. The restaurant, I suppose, within a few years, I was cooking in the restaurant. I was acting as a chef and trying to cope with the customer service aspect of it. It was probably only really, probably in the early 90s that I really got my teeth into the fish and chip shops, and I felt that was the direction I wanted to go. So
yeah. So then, how long did the restaurant carry on before John Dory's came to the scene?
Well, there always was the restaurant Rick's, and there was the Rumbles, the takeaway. In 2000, I was keen to expand. So in 2000, we opened another shop on the Ballygowan Road, and we rebranded at that stage to John Dory. So that's an easy calculation, 2000 to 2024. Once we rebranded, then we rebranded, carried off to John Dory's. And again, it's coming up with names. The John Dory, I'd started off on a theme of like Sloop John B, and I was trying to come up with different ideas. And it was an architect actually with us. He said, "What about a John Dory?" And that's really where the name came from. So I can't take the credit for it. Somebody else can actually take the name.
Do you think it's a bit of an Americanism? Like in America, you've got the Long John Silver type thing. Whereas in mainland UK, there is some called John Dory's, but I think mostly they're called after an area or Kelly, who's listening with us at the moment, theirs is called Crispies. But again, that's probably a theme around what they do, which is the battered chip, I would imagine. I might be completely wrong. But I think that the Americans there's always like a brand name behind something. Is that what you were sort of aiming for, do you think?
Yes, and that's very much what, certainly the first 10 years, that's really what we focused on. We wanted people to associate John Dory's with fish and chips. So people would turn around and say, "We're going to get a John Dory. We're not going to go and get fish and chips." And that can backfire on you a little bit, because we are now perceived as a brand. It would be a bit presumptuous to say equivalent to a multinational brand, but we're certainly probably one of the largest independent chains in Northern Ireland. With that comes responsibility, and that people see you as being slightly higher up the pecking order, perhaps, than small independents, and therefore they expect higher standards. So I said, you've got to make sure all your ducks are in a row. But we were very good at the start. And I have a very good graphic designer who is about the same age as me and has worked with me for 25 years. And we think alike, so we generally get the best. But what we really focused on was building a brand. And once we built the brand, the rest, I won't say it came easy, but it gave us a platform to work towards and a standard to work towards. And as I said, that's the biggest compliment somebody can pay me. They turn around and say, are you part of a brand? Are you part of a chain? Or if I say I have John Dory's, they say, "Which one do you own?" And I say, "Well, actually, it's all of them." And people do perceive us as a brand, which is a very nice compliment.
It's interesting building a brand, because I think at the beginning you are small or almost nothing. You're insignificant because you've just started it. It's the founding of something. So you aim it to be big. You want it so people look at it and think, "Wow, that's big." And then when you get big, you almost think, well, actually, I want to tone it down a bit now, because I want to be part of the local scene. I don't want people to think we're a huge conglomerate. And I remember we had 3 shops back in the day, and the third one we opened had a bit of a refresh look, let's say. And I remember just outside sweeping up, and a woman says to her son, or her son says, "Oh, what's this place?" It would not opened yet. We were just about to do our launch, and she goes, "Oh, it's some big chain." But we were literally 2 miles down the road. It's just that they visually look different. So yeah, a part of you thinks it's nice, but at the same time you sort of think, a bit cautious there, because you don't want people thinking you are, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, and so on, some big face. Yeah.
I think the fact that we sort of went with a name rather than the Golden Cod or something along those lines, that came with some humor as well, because I had a restaurant, Rick's, and I had the John Dory's at one stage, and everybody called me Rick in the restaurant, and in the takeaway everybody called me John. And it'd be quite funny, because you get reps coming in, the reps would turn around and say, "I'm a really good friend of John's, will you let him know I called, and or could you give him a call and tell him I'm here?" And none of them ever knew my real name. So, wow. So some degree of anonymity is quite nice in this profession. So
yeah,
but I still get John. From people. So
well, we'll call you John if you want. If it makes you feel better, we'll call you.
I answer to most things, Stelios, as you know. So
yeah, likewise. I ain't got a choice about it. I just have to. So, but it's interesting. Like, so was there a part of you that maybe deep down, even before you became civil engineer, was there a part of you that thought, I may end up as a self-employed person, a business person? Did you ever have that, or was it just completely a circumstance?
No, it was probably random, to be honest. I'd always had an inkling to go and work abroad, and much to the annoyance of my girlfriend at the time, I did. I left and never to be seen again. But no, I had no inkling I would get into catering, and but equally, I have no regrets about leaving. No, I have done. It has stood me in good stead. All my shops, I do my own shop fitting. Mm-hmm. When I say do my own shop fitting, I bring in people by the grip. But I'm reasonably handy myself, and that's something you either have in life by choice. I would be into my DIY and into all that sort of stuff. As is Stephen, we're both fairly practical with our hands. We've built 3 houses. We've renovated any number of houses. We've built, renovated apartments in France, stuff like that there. So we're fairly practical. And I think if you have that practical ethos, then I think that carries through into whatever profession you go into.
Yeah.
I'm also quite fastidious, and I hate going into a shop and seeing a shop untidy, or everything. I have to be organized. I'm generally an organized person. It may not come across as that, but generally I am.
No, I've never seen anything different from you. Honestly, you obviously spent a few visits with you in Belfast, and you've took me around, and we spent a little time together. And I'd noticed all of these things. You were outside on time, waiting for me. So outside the airport, you could tell you're a man that likes to be on time and get things done right. And and then going to the shops, I could see how you pull people apart nicely and just say, "Oh, yeah, this needs doing." There was never one thing I've been trying to think about this. I didn't know if it was more to your personality or more of your training as a civil engineer. Is that you have a very what's the word? A very even personality. I never see you fly off the handle with anybody or get really annoyed and angry. It all seems to be just communicated really naturally. And I think you set your standards, and you hope that people just meet you there. Really.
Yeah, well, I'm also very fortunate. I have some lovely colleagues that I work with right across my organisation, and we tend to filter out the ones that we don't want or we don't like, and that's quite often led by the managers or the assistant managers, the supervisors. If somebody's not working out, they let me know, and where possible, we try to give them an opportunity to improve. But if not, we let them go. And consequently, they don't suffer fools. The staff don't suffer fools, because if somebody's not pulling their weight, they have to work harder. So they're very quick to tell me if things aren't just 100% in each shop. We're probably about 95% of where I want to be staff-wise at the minute. Tomorrow, I'll spend tomorrow morning interviewing. I have 5 candidates. But with this industry, you set up 6 interviews, and 3 out of the 6 won't even turn up. And that's a real factor. But those are the people you don't want anyway. So, exactly. I probably need 1 40-hour cover. in one of the shops. And other than that, I'm reasonably good position. A lot of people leave us but come back to us, which is interesting. I have a young chap, great footballer, in our Dundonald shop, and he left to go and work in a law firm. And he was doing sort of paralegal style work, but he's absolutely bored to tears with it. So he asked could he come back. So he's coming back to me as a supervisor on a 40-hour contract. Nice. And I'd be really glad to have him back because he's a lovely lad. So
you take good people back with open arms, don't you? Really,
you do.
And so you open Ballygowan Road first. That was your first John Dory's, let's say. What were the first sort of immediately, as you could think, within the first year, let's say, were there any notable challenges? And did you know then that you were going to open more of these?
I think it was a suck it and see type scenario. We have been reasonably fortunate in the sites we have selected. Now, not every business, very few people in my line of work will have a 100% success record. We opened another restaurant at the time. We opened Rick's. We were courted into it by the same developer that owned the shopping centre. He asked us, would we open in another shopping centre? And we did. And it didn't work for us. Fortunately, we had sort of nobody else was allowed to provide hot food in the environment. So we'd sold catering rights really to a certain extent. So we came out of it okay, but you still put a massive capital investment into any of these projects. We had one chip shop we closed, just didn't work out for us. We didn't close, we sold it. They recover our costs? Probably not, but those are, you take the hard knocks. And do they get to? Yes, they do. We've all had stress. We've all experienced stress within our working environment and within our working life. You try to manage that as best as you can. And sometimes, about 30 years ago, I took some time out for about 6 weeks and actually went and renovated a house just to do something completely different, to get my head showered of fish and chips and staff and all the associated problems that go with it. I probably manage my time better now, and I don't get just as stressed, but there are things that upset you. So I think, the mistakes you make sometimes make you stronger. And I think, 2000, we rebranded to John Dory's, rebranded carried off at the same time. 2002, we opened a shop. 2004, we opened a shop. I think 2006, we opened a shop. And we were going along the cycle of about every 2 years, sometimes 3 years, 4 years, depending on planning. Some opened, some closed. We have another site lined up, which I think will be an excellent site. We're now in our 4th planning officer, so it's a slow progress. It's Northern Ireland, planning in Northern Ireland is particularly slow. And everything just takes longer than it should, which is a frustration when you're in business.
So what sort of decisions lead you to closing a store? I take it low turnover's one. I guess, would you probably, I guess you'd never leave a store otherwise, would you?
No, you wouldn't. And people have often said to me, why don't you franchise? Well, the truth of the matter is you can make more money running them yourselves than you can to franchise the operation. Not that I wouldn't maybe be against for it in the future, but at this stage, franchising wouldn't interest me. Selling a property, yes, you'll only sell it if it's just not hitting the targets that you set, and it has to run profitably. We ran a shop for a number of years, which didn't make an awful lot, but it still turned a profit, but not a big profit. But nowadays you need to be into, with the rising costs, you need to be into a much higher level of turnover now than you would have been in the past.
Do you see the financials stacking up to do franchising? Because one of the things that a lot of people say to me is, we'd never franchise because the business model ain't right or the financials don't stack up. And I've seen a few smaller groups. There was one in Warsaw, which is just down the road from me in the Midlands. And they had this whole fanfare. We're going to do franchise. One opened and then one quickly closed. That's not to say that the business model wasn't right, but I wonder if the financials are always difficult in our industry.
I think franchising is difficult, particularly in the fish and chip industry, because I just want to say it's a low startup generally, but it's a low skill level startup in that, somebody can open a shop, they can go in, they'll cook chips, they'll cook fish, pasties, sausages, whatever. So everybody will probably try to have a go themselves before they'd consider taking on and paying for a franchise. It's also a model that's very difficult to control, because unlike maybe your Burger Kings and your McDonald's, their menus structured differently to us. Working a lot of frozen products and things like that. We work on a lot of fresh products, and it's keeping track of that and how you can actually. It would be the integrity of the operation that would concern me, and I don't think. I think the business is better kept as a family business, which is what it really is at this stage. But who knows? I'm 63 now. Stephen's 70 next year. Linda's 70 this year, unfortunately. So we can't go on forever, and we'll have to have some sort of exit strategy moving forward. None of the children, Stephen's 3 children, 2 accountants, 1 chemical engineer. On my side of the family, I have a solicitor and a teacher, and really none of them would be interested in giving up their Saturday nights and their Friday nights to come and work in this environment. So unless the 3rd generation come through before we all pop our clogs, then I think we'll keep it running as long as we possibly can. Well, some of our leases are running till I'm 80. So, okay. So I have a bit to go yet. So
you're stuck till then.
Yeah, pretty much.
But so now you're up to, if I'm right, 7 outlets. Is that right?
7, and with 1 in the pipeline, agreed, but not built as yet. So.
And is there a plan to when you expanded? So, for example, did you want to always be near another site, or was it just location, whichever came first?
Well, I think our 3rd shop was Hollywood Road, which was a petrol station, and it was part of the Spar group. And so we went in with no expectations really, other than we thought the site was reasonably good. We went in and we took a site there, and really then our business model developed, because the Hendersons would approach us and say, look, we have another unit coming up on another garage forecourt. Would you be interested? And then on occasions, I would go and look at one of their garage forecourts and say, look, I think you could put a shop or a unit on the end of the building there. And if you did, we would take it. So that was the conversation. And we had a very good, and we still have a very good relationship with the Henderson group, the Spar group. But that model has changed dramatically since we first took it on. When we had Carrie Duff, we would open at 9 a.m. And on a Friday, I would have 5 staff in from 8 o'clock. And we were flat to the mat. We were as busy in those 3 hours between 9 and 12 as we would have been on a Friday night between 5 and 8. There was a really strong morning trade. You had all your white van men. You had all your factories in the area, quarries, and we were full on at that stage. The garage model, when we first went into it, the garages would have had a subway. That would have been the only, and maybe a sandwich section. Now, as you know yourself, most of the garages now are full-on food courts. Mm-hmm. So we have no trade really between 9 and 12, because we really just can't compete with the garages and their prices. So I suppose that was a bone of contention for us to a certain extent, in that the model that we signed up for changed dramatically. But really, we didn't have very much control of that. We didn't have sole catering rights or anything like that there. And we had to continue to work with the owners of the forecourts. But it certainly has become more difficult. So our trade, which would have been busy in the morning, is now, we opened at 9, we now open at 12. We still offer a sort of a brunch, but the garages have everything out on display. People walk in, they can fill a bucket for 3 or 4 quid. They can grab a Coke, grab their newspaper, a packet of fags, whatever it is they want. That model has changed, and it's not a model we are going for any longer, really. To put it in perspective, we come out of a garage. Our lease was up in Hollywood Road, and we very fortunately got an old Chinese about 300 yards down the road, and we were able to drop our rent by 60%, and our rates as well. So the garage forecourts, yes, they do bring trade. There's no doubt. People coming in, they use the garages for one-stop shop, basket shopping, get their petrol, get whatever they need, their milk. But the rents are dear. So the last shop we agreed at 60% less than what we were actually paying. Wow. And that's significant. And our turnover, bar a a couple of £100 has remained the same.
Wow, it's a significant difference.
Significant. So our model going forward will not be that the next site we're looking at is a standalone site.
Yeah.
There'll probably be there is an off license next door to us, which is a good combination. There is a co-op on the site and a chemist, and there probably will be a Chinese. Now, that's the only thing we found. Quite a few of our sites have Chinese beside us, but they have never taken away any of our trade. If anything, they probably enhance it. So competition sometimes is good, but it becomes a one-stop shop, really.
I don't think I've ever seen Chinese, or probably I'd go as far as saying Indian food. I don't think I've ever gone as far as seeing those two items as competition directly. Obviously, you're all in the same pool, I guess, of customers that want to eat something. But in my mind, if they have Chinese tonight, they'll probably have fish and chips tomorrow. I don't think it's versus each other. I don't think it's I'm having John Dory's or Chinese tonight and then nothing for the rest of the week. I think if you fancy something, you're going to get that product.
Yeah. Or, people have more discerning tastes now, and we have an awful lot. Certainly, when I started 40 years ago, I didn't know what vegan was, and I maybe once met a vegetarian in my life, and it wasn't something that was topical. People now have such discerning tastes, so they may come to us, and maybe 3 members of the family will go and get a John Dory's, and 1 member of the family will go and get a chicken fried rice. It offers that choice. The one area we probably have struggled with over the years, mainly because the space is meeting that increasing vegetarian and vegan market. But it's very difficult when you work in a fish and chip environment and your main cooking medium is beef dripping. So the potential for cross contamination, is real. Now we keep 1 pan as in vegetable oil only, and we try not to. But if you've been really strict about it, if you've got utensils even moving between one area and the next, you're defeating the purpose. So we have tried to we try to offer non-meat products, but we try not to specify vegetarian and certainly not vegan. So
yeah, I think Burger King did something similar a few years ago when they just said we have a plant-based burger, and I think when you delved into it, they still cooked it on the same grill. And they just said it's for people that want to eat lighter or less meat. And, but it's an option for those. But they wouldn't, at the time, they wouldn't go as far as saying it was vegan or vegetarian. It was just plant-based, but cooked on the same grill. So there's a lot to be said for that.
I think McDonald's, didn't McDonald's introduce a salad to their menu? And they said their sales significantly increased. And what they found was that the typical housewife was going, I don't want to go to McDonald's. And then they went and they said, they offer a salad. Okay, I'll have a Big Mac and give me a salad on the side. Yeah. So, they still ate their Big Macs or whatever. And we're probably the same. Our menu evolves. We probably are. We still class ourselves as a traditional fish and chip shop. But if you look at some of my other branding, it will be things like family-friendly food. It'll be rather than the traditional fish and chips. And the truth is we have all had to evolve our menu to meet increasing demand. And particularly with the recent cost of living crisis, you're trying to come up with novel ideas that are cost effective, but offer a really good value meal for the person coming in. So we offer, a great range of stuff. We still are, fish and chips are still our main ingredients. Like everybody else in the UK, we're being hit with high prices. I think our biggest frustration, and if the Chancellor ever listens to this, then he can take what I say as gospel. The VAT rate sitting at 20%. I'm sitting in Northern Ireland with the VAT rate of 20%. The south of Ireland for hot food is 13.5%. That difference in capital, or that difference in what we would save, would give me so much more opportunity to reinvest in my business, to pay my staff more, to buy new equipment, to open more sites. But and the Chancellor has been extremely clever, even with the recent increase in minimum wage. Now, every business will turn around and say, we all want to pay our staff as much as we can, but there is an upper limit as to what you can get for the food you're serving. The Chancellor puts the national living wage up, puts an awful lot of people, as same with pensioners, into the tax and national insurance threshold. So he's laughing all the way to the bank. Meanwhile, it's the independent businesses like ourselves that are having to pick up the cost. Now, my wage bill this month went up £10,000 from last month. it's very hard, And yes, you can get some of that back through increase in prices, through efficiencies. We've done a number of things with how we buy our fish, sausages, other products like that there. But, it's just the cost of living has really crippled everybody. Energy costs are higher in Northern Ireland. Generally, we're paying more for our electricity and our gas. If you think about it logically, even your own business, everything we buy and we want to bring in is having to come through England. Mm-hmm. So we're not able to compete to the same extent. So if you look at our prices compared to the prices in the mainland, then our prices generally are higher. This year is going to be a bad year for potatoes. And, every bag of potatoes, our potatoes a year and a half ago were paying £8 for a pre-packed bag. And we were probably one of the first people that I was aware of, certainly going through the competitions, that use the pre-packed 10 kilo bags. It's a much cleaner way to produce your chips, and we get excellent quality. We get better shelf life out of them. But a year and a half ago, we were paying £8 a bag. Probably in another month or so, we'll be paying £14, £15 a bag. And if you go through the volume that we go through over 7 shops, that's a significant cost to us, So it has been challenging. Brexit was challenging. We got through Brexit, and then we just got hit with the cost of living crisis. But look, I'm not telling you anything you don't know yourself. You haven't experienced yourself. It's been challenging. We just feel there's an upper limit to what we can charge for our product. Now, we put our prices up a number of weeks ago to try to compensate somewhat for the increase in the national living wage. And there's been very little, we've had no negative feedback on it at all. But we've tried to offer really good value. And we offer a lot of deals and offers and specials and things like that. So, but challenging times.
In terms of Brexit, who would have thought that Northern Ireland would have been pig in the middle between Europe and the UK? Obviously, Northern Ireland is UK, but it was just piggy in the middle. It was just, I never thought we'd see that in none of the debates or anything. Did I think that was ever going to be a problem until actually it happened, and then all of a sudden, everyone in Northern Ireland's like, 1 minute, this is a mess. This doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, I think Brexit. I think when all of Ireland was, or all of the UK was part of Europe, we all had an identity within Europe. Whether you were a Northern Irish Protestant or a Northern Irish Catholic or a Southern Irish person, we all had an identity within Europe, and really things were ticking along quite nicely. There was still an aspiration within certain sections of the community for a united Ireland, but it was very muted and very quiet. The whole Brexit thing has really caused major headaches. And part of our problem is still the supply of goods from England into the UK, into Northern Ireland. And that's a frustration. It certainly is a frustration for a lot of people. Just adds to the cost, really, Maybe in a perfect environment, if they do get this properly sorted out, Northern Ireland really could be the Singapore of the West, because, we have a foot in Europe and we have a foot in the UK, so we can trade in both communities. We just have to get that sorted out. And then there's still the push for United Ireland. But I think at the recent economic forecast was it would cost the south of Ireland £20 billion pounds or euros to support Northern Ireland on a yearly basis. So it's but Brexit was disappointing for us. We probably would have preferred to stay within Europe, but 50% of the people in the UK probably feel the same. And I say if it was put to the poll now, it would be a different result.
I think in time, by the time you're 80, let's say, when your leases come up, things might be better. You don't know. And I think when you live through the moment of anything, I always think it's going to be difficult because you haven't got the benefit of hindsight. So I do think fast forward after a few false starts, I think maybe I'm being optimistic, but I do think we'll look back on it and think, well, that was a big palaver.
Everything will settle down. I think it's frustration from our point of view. I mean, if you look at, I think hot food or fast food businesses, restaurants are getting 70% rates relief in the UK at the moment. As part of the Barnett consequential, we were supposed to be getting that as well, but it never materialised. So the English businesses are getting rates relief. We're not. Food inflation is still sitting in Northern Ireland at around 20%. On a positive note and a bit of general trivia, there are only 2 towns in the United Kingdom that have more millionaires than Northern Ireland, and one is London and one is Aberdeen.
Okay.
And there are more high performance cars, and I mean like Porsches, BMWs, Mercedes, sold in Northern Ireland than any other part of Europe. So, we have a very high public sector here.
Yeah.
So we don't get hit just as badly when there are inflationary increases and things like that. They have secure jobs, they have pensions. So I think about, might be, as high as 50, 60, 70% of Northern Ireland's public sector. So there is probably a wee bit more disposable income over here, which certainly reflects on our turnovers.
Just looking back at the petrol station, how many outlets do you have in petrol stations now?
5.
Oh, 5. Okay. And that's
Okay.
not a business model you want to pursue moving forward. But a friend of mine owns a fish and chip shop in a petrol station not far from me, about 40 minutes away. And he said to me, he goes, ask Mark if they see a downturn when petrol prices are high.
No. And without questioning anybody's what they charge for their products, some of the forecourts would certainly be more expensive in general than the independent fuel suppliers. So I think what were we paying this morning? I passed a shop and they were paying 1.44
For
per
petrol?
litre petrol or diesel. Sorry, diesel. I passed another
wow,
shop.
okay.
I passed another shop. It was 1.52.
Okay.
So there's quite a swing, and the forecourts tend to be dearer than your smaller independent. Now, all garages are forecourts. All garages offer coffee, sandwiches, hot food of some description. They've maximised their revenue and their turnover, and every right to do so. But do I think there's still a model for the garages? Yes, provided they're not greedy. And we found the rents are probably 50% higher in the garages than they would be. Are you getting the throughput of people that you wouldn't get elsewhere? Possibly, but certainly our shop, when we moved in the Hollywood Road, although we were established, we'd been there for 20 years. Our turnover didn't really change when we moved, 400 yards down the road to a different unit.
Well, that's I think
if the garage does well, the shop will do well. So
yeah, because it's bringing people in, I guess, isn't it?
It's bringing people in, yeah. And we are a draw ourselves. I mean, most of our shops should be putting through maybe 2,000 customers a week. So we are a draw to the garages too. It's not one way traffic. We bring people in who then go and get their groceries in the garage or in the garage shop. It works. It's a partnership, and but it's just getting it's a more expensive partnership.
Yeah.
You obviously have landlords insurances and things like that there, and there's from time to time there's disruption in the forecourts when they're doing work. Even big lorries coming in, blocking their delivery lorries and stuff like that there. They can block the forecourt. Parking is quite often tight, but our model has more or less been built on the demographics of the area, the number of chimney pots, and I suppose just availability of parking as well is a big factor for us. So and that model has worked. So we've no plans to change it in the near future.
Is there a lot of fish and chip competition in Northern Ireland, would you say?
Yes, there'll be a lot of independents, and there are a few chains, some of a similar size to us, up in the north coast of Ireland. But it has traditionally been a more of an independent type store. So we are surrounded by independent fish and chip shops. Some have been there a long time. Some are well established. Some change hands quite a bit. But yeah, there is competition, and we're always aware of that. But it's not something you can do an awful lot about. You try to work on your own product and keep your own product as good as you can. Then and you get your customer service right. So those are the things you can control. You can't really control the competition too much.
100%. And in your mind, you've been to mainland a few times, I take it. Is there many differences between a fish and chip shop in Belfast than a fish and chip shop in mainland UK?
Not that I'm aware of. Now, most of the people I've been in contact with, either through yourself or through the Fish and Chip Awards and things like that there, have tended to be family businesses, which again is what we are. and most of them have come are second or third generation. I'm not aware. I haven't met too many who have only just set up, but there are some fantastic examples of exceptionally well run fish and chip shops, and they lead the field, and they are better at what they do. Some of the independents than what we do, and I have only admiration for them all. Some of them are the people that own the shops I've met, and I know how hard they work as well. So it's but is there a difference? I think fish and chips is funny if you're beside the seaside, which a lot of the best shops are. You have that seasonal trade. We have 12 months of the year trade, and I wouldn't like to be just relying on seasonal trade. But as I said, you have to diversify your menu. You have to, fish and chips doesn't suit everybody every day, so you need to offer alternatives. And coming from the restaurant environment. At least two of our staff were ex-chefs in the restaurant. So Eddie, who you've met, is particularly good, innovative, coming up with new ideas, new menu ideas. And we try things out, and, we chop and change as we go along. But no, I think I don't think it's a significant amount of difference. I think some of the stores in the UK are bigger. I mean, I don't think there's a Harry Ramsden's in Northern Ireland anymore. If there is, certainly none in the Belfast area. And there's no big multinational type groups, or no shops like you'd find down in Whitby, maybe 2,000 square foot shops with big sit-in facilities and things like that. Plenty of restaurants and bars that offer really good fish and chips, but not the big stores like you get, or the big shops like you get in England.
Yeah, no, and I guess that's just because the region is different. I guess everyone I've seen, even within the UK, each region makes fish and chip their own. So, for example, if you go to West Yorkshire, it is literally fish and chips in beef dripping. If you go south to Yorkshire, there's fish and chips, and you start seeing introduction of some shops doing kebabs and pies. And then you come into the Midlands, and there's a lot of kebabs and pies and southern fried chicken alongside fish and chips. You go to Wales, and you probably see the likes of faggots and curry salt, chicken curry on the menu, and again pies. You go up to Scotland, and they've probably got pizza going on. I was shocked when I went to Edinburgh, because in Edinburgh they actually have little supermarkets and fish and chip shops as well. So I guess every region is doing their own thing.
Oh, very much. We are very fickle in terms of our of what we like in Northern Ireland, and I find it increasingly hard to get the public to eat anything other than cod. We are a cod region. Going back 40 years, we would have probably sold quite a lot of whiting. Haddock, probably less than 5% of what I sell is haddock, and yet the haddock is beautiful. But by comparison, I was over in Australia in January, and I went into a fish and chip shop, and I jotted down what all they offered just out of interest. So this was the list of fish available to me for my fish and chips. I had flake, butterfish, blue grenadier, Atlantic salmon, snapper, trevally, King George whiting, barramundi, cuta, flathead, and rainbow trout. And they were all available to me to be battered and served. And I mean, I can't remember. I think I had blue grenadier one day, and I possibly had flake the other day, and or barramundi. It was
barramundi. I found that quite nice. I've had that before.
Barramundi's lovely. Great fish. And, but I mean, the choice they had, people just went in and chose whatever they fancied. I can't get them to eat anything other than cod. And it's frustration.
I used to get a lot of Polish people say for us to do rainbow trout, because they love rainbow trout. But again, I found that I had a lot of fish on the menu at one point back in the day when I worked full time in the business, and I found that people just wanted cod and haddock, and we tried. It wasn't for a lack of trying, but for you to say that people actually just want cod as well. Well, again,
they don't like fish that tastes of fish. I mean, I quite like a strong fish. Even like a hake, which isn't a particularly strong fish, but you nearly would throw more out than you actually sold. I love smoked fish, and I did battered smoked fish. It was very popular in one shop, but again, hit or miss. You could have a week where you'd sell a lot, and the next week you'd be throwing some bits out. And so, you give the public what they want, and in this case, it's cod in Northern Ireland. Scotland is all haddock, and as you say, there are regional differences all around the country. We still cook in beef dripping, and I just don't think in this business there's a for me anyway, in Northern Ireland, there's not an alternative to it. I can notice a big difference in taste. And yet probably you go into most bars, restaurants, and they're all cooking in vegetable oil, so typically. So
I'm a big fan of beef dripping. I know it's not as popular and modern, but I don't know. I just think it's a real nice flavour.
Well, it's a natural byproduct of the food chain, and we're very fortunate. There are a few things we can buy over here. We have a very good supplier in Crew meats for beef dripping at a good price. We the things that are frustrating. I mean, Northern Ireland or Ireland, they always say is the home of the potato. Yet I can't buy a potato in Ireland that will chip. It just the climatic conditions are wrong. The amount of rainfall is wrong. So all my potatoes have to come from the south of England, much the same as everybody else. So again, you were talking about costs. There's an increase in the haulage costs, which is why if you typically look at a Northern Irish price list against a maybe North of England price list, we are dearer. But it's just the extra haulage of bringing everything backwards and forwards. So it's
I've never noticed the price difference, but I'm pretty as a consumer anyway. I'm pretty price blind. If I like something, I'm going to pay for it regardless. And I know that's a privileged position, but I just think, again, in the fish and chip industry, I've never really got into a fish and chip shop and thought that's expensive. Never really. I just think as long as it's nice and good quality, you don't really mind.
Yeah, I think you can get away with charging what you need to charge for the product if you serve a good product. And we're very fortunate. We have a really good potato supplier, and we have excellent potatoes. Our fish is much the same as everybody else, mostly frozen at sea, and is a good quality. But 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had to change suppliers in fish, and our price jumped 26%.
Wow.
So you get huge increases. That's very hard to budget for, but things can move up and down. But prices can be, prices in Northern Ireland, I think we pay slightly more for everything than you do in the mainland.
And what are energy costs like gas and electric in comparison? I don't know if you know that figure, but
don't know the figure because the prices changed there recently. But we certainly aren't. We don't have a price cap the same way as you have in the mainland. So we are paying more, but the prices are coming down from their peak.
I mean, in everyday terms, generally speaking, in your experience, is gas and electric dearer than it is on mainland, or is
yes.
it? Oh, okay,
yes.
Yeah.
And, probably the infrastructure within the gas network in the UK would be much better established than it would have been in Northern Ireland. But again, we're probably having to bulk buy it in from parts of the UK. But most of the fish that's landed, is landed in England. And I know our fish supplier will be drawing from England, not drawing directly from the manufacturer. So, and from experience, I prefer to buy directly from the manufacturer where I possibly can. So, but yeah, it's look, we'll get through it. It's been challenging for everybody in the UK. Prices, prices are high. It'll push the prices up. If the public are prepared to pay it, and maybe we have to be realistic. If you go to parts of Europe, they pay considerably more for the same product than we do. So
no, exactly.
I think it's just that there's very little help. The Chancellor gives nothing back to the hospitality industry, and we've had to carry the burden for quite a while. As I said, a change to the VAT rate would be a significant help for us.
One thing I don't see, and I've just been trying to look at this scenario from both sides, and I'd wonder what your thought is on this. I don't see Labour, which is the other, it's usually Labour and Conservatives. And I know, obviously, in Northern Ireland, it's slightly different because locally there's some bigger parties. But I don't see anybody else talking about bringing VAT down. I don't see it. So let's say Labour get in tomorrow with a majority, which is everyone else's prerogative if that's who they want in. I don't see them saying, "Oh, by the way, we're dropping VAT." I actually think they'd probably go the other way slightly. I have a feeling that they'd probably say, "Well, actually, we need to pay for this, this, and this. So actually, we might stick another 2% on."
For businesses, yeah.
I was in a message group earlier, and we were chatting about Rachel Reeves talking about taxing non-DOMs and people that evade, let's say, evaders and taxing them proportionately and properly and making sure that the government actually take the money. And I was just thinking, when the government actually does these things, all governments in the UK, it feels like the really wealthy get away with it because they can afford certain accountants and trusts and so on. And then they never go at the bottom end because, no one ever goes after the bottom end because that's just awful. Why would you go after the poor people, so to speak? Yeah. And then it's always the aspiring middle classes that get absolutely, shot in the back. And I wonder, there isn't a government out there at the moment that seems aspirational for anybody.
No, I agree. And I think it's short-sighted because, to quote my own example, last week I bought a new range for one of the shops. I'm really embarrassed to say that the range I'm taking out was the first range I put in Carryduff over, I reckon, 5 years ago, something like that. So I'm replacing it. But, you're into a £50,000 capital investment for a range. And I would love to change more of my ranges, but the truth is you're limited to what you can do within the constraints of your own budgets and finances. What I'd said was, and the most easiest way for the industry to benefit is a cut in the VAT rate. It would give us more disposable income to reinvest in the economy. And, money's made round to go round, but if I don't have the money there to invest in new ranges, new equipment, refits in my shop, then it's a false economy because a lot of people are losing out on sales of equipment and stuff like that. So,
in my mind, I don't know if you've heard me say this anywhere before. I don't know if you've listened to any episodes or anything, but I think that the biggest weakness we've got as a hospitality industry is that we haven't shown the government or the successive government or whoever's next what a better VAT rate or VAT system would look like. And I think if all the hospitality leaders got together to say to them, as an idea, if they all agree on it, that is, we think VAT should apply to all of out-of-home food, whether it's supermarket, catering establishment, service station, you name it, bakers and so on. But we think that it should also be lower. And let's, for argument's sake, say 11%. I'm just making up a figure here. Because then you could say, well, you're collecting it off quadruple the amount of items now. Because in my opinion, the most important two words in value-added tax is value-added. And you could argue that if fish and chips has value-addedness to it, let's say, well, then so does a sandwich made at Tesco for you, because you could have easily made a sandwich at home, couldn't you? So,
yeah. And many of the sandwich chains, are serving hot food as well. They come under the banner of cold food, but they serve hot rolls, sandwiches, stuff like that there. So
we're starting to see an amalgamation between people that only used to do baked ambient foods and hot foods. So yesterday, I was in a Greg's yesterday, just waiting for my son to finish jiu-jitsu, and they were selling pizza slices in a pizza box that looked like a normal pizza box that Domino's would have. And then I'm thinking, all right, it is ambient, although the one I bought comes straight out of the oven, which is fine. I didn't have an issue, and I'm happy to give the government the 25p if they want it. But I feel like it'd just be a cleaner system now if the government said all out-of-home food carries 10%, 12% VAT. I just think that would make complete sense. That would be great for business for you. But also it's fair of people that eat out a lot more now. I think the whole landscape of eating out has massively changed. In the 80s, eating out meant mostly going to the local fish and chip shop, maybe getting a curry or Indian, and then going to a restaurant. Whereas now, consumers would eat out so much that it almost feels like a penalty at 20%.
It does. And there's been a massive growth in food establishments. And when I say food establishments, I cover everything from coffee shops, which every time you go down a street, there seems to be another coffee shop opening. But I think a more level playing field. But and it's not to be greedy. It's not because I want to go and buy myself a new car or anything like that there. It's purely to give us a bit of capital, free up capital that we can reinvest back in the business. Every shop we do, and our shops typically are around 750, 800 square feet, maybe slightly more sometimes. But, you're into a six-figure sum for your fit out. And, that money has to be saved, has to be accumulated. And I'm just saying it is one mechanism which would assist us with the development of our business moving forward. So I think to a certain extent it's short-sighted of the government and not realizing that hospitality, probably one of the biggest employers in the country when you take all the sectors into account, and yet we're the ones that seem to be, and mostly private enterprise, but we're the ones that seem to be penalised the most. And I mean, the last budget there was nothing for us at all, and so there's an element of frustration there. But this has been voiced by the National Federation. This has been voiced by the the small businesses associations and things like that. So it's we're crying on deaf ears, unfortunately. So,
what's your thoughts on the VAT threshold? Do you think that could be tweaked in order to help people, or help business or people? Because I think, from what I understand, that there's been debates over the years whether to drop it to like minimal numbers, like 20,000, or increase it to, let's say, 150,000. But no one seems to know the way forward. Hence why it's just stayed in limbo.
I think one of the problems is our business, or the hospitality business in general, was perceived as operating a lot more in the black economy, for want of a better term, and that may still exist to a certain extent within some sectors. Probably been largely alleviated because our business used to be a cash business. Now, I mean, all our online platforms are all prepaid credit card only. Very few customers come into the shop now and pay in cash. Most people come in and tap. It's convenient. We all do it. As I said, we have a high public sector, so all the salaries are going into the bank. It's much easier to tap a card, not carry cash with you. So we went from pre-COVID. Our managers would have paid out all our suppliers on a weekly basis, that have paid all their wages out on a weekly basis. Everything would have been paid out in cash because from a security point of view, it was more practical for us to get the cash off the premises rather than be sitting there on a Friday or Saturday night with a large accumulation of cash. Now, between 7 shops, we have virtually no cash. Everything is card. So from a large extent, the black economy has been partially eliminated, which should bring more revenue in for the exchequer. But it's a balancing act always, and everything we do, we have to consider, the costs going down the line. Our business, we rely an awful lot on equipment, but we have a till provider who provides us with an EPOS system, which is fully supported, and we couldn't operate without that. Obviously, we're running our own app. We have things like insurance, we have security cameras, we have digital telephone contracts with companies, again, from a service point of view, because we really can't afford our equipment to go down, whether it's a till going down, a telephone line going down. So, we have an awful lot of support built into our operation, which all comes at a cost. But as I said, there still are independents out there who probably fly under the radar a little bit. But I think one of the funniest things I see is when you go past a restaurant or a takeaway and there's a sign in the window saying cash only. That's like a big red light on the roof for the revenue and customs. So it's foolish. And I think our business has moved beyond that. We have a lot more credibility now within the industry. But everything is it's just full accountability now for everything. Everything is credit card, and everything is through the bank, and that's fine. We're happy to work with that, but it's not always a level playing field.
No, absolutely. Well, this is the problem. But it would be nice to know sometimes what the government is thinking, because what data are they seeing? Are they seeing something else? I guess one argument is if they lowered VAT. And I don't know whether you'd have to tell me, because I don't want to be putting words in your mouth, and I don't also want to be heartless. But if the government lower VAT and then businesses that would have gone out of business stay in business for another 3 years, is that a good goal or a bad goal?
Oh, that's a hard question. It
is, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I'm not really sure, and that unfortunately is my or fortunately is my brother's forte, and not mine. But as I said, it doesn't affect us.
I'd imagine, I don't want to put words in your brother's mouth, but I'd imagine he'd be a bit stiffer than you. He'd be a bit like, well, yes, it would help people like that. Because I guess, and I'm just guessing, I've only spoke to Stephen on the phone. So I just imagine as an accounts person, he'd be very much more black and white like my accounts person is.
Yeah, well, I think if you even setting our industry aside, and you look at, for example, the construction industry, I have friends who are who work maybe as electricians and things like that. And does it suit them to stay below the VAT threshold? Yes, to a certain extent, but it also limits growth.
Yeah.
So if you're prepared to accept that this is as good as it's going to get, and this is the level of turnover I want to achieve, that's fine. But if you have an aspiration to grow your business, then it really shouldn't be a barrier.
I think that's why there's one really strong argument why, in my opinion, the threshold should just be low. Because then it's like, because many times I see shops and they're like, oh, we're not gonna register for VAT, and I'm like, oh, why is that? Well, we're just not going to, blah blah blah, etc. And then I'll ring them like a year later or something. We have a catch up, and they're like, well, we had to register for VAT, and jumping over that hump was very difficult. And I'm like, well, if you just went into it charging the right amount, and actually, I think if you read the proper wording, it says you should register the minute you know you're going to go over, not when you go over. Yeah. So I do sort of think, in my mind, if they just said all out of home food carries X amount of VAT, and I'm not an economist, so anybody listening to this that knows numbers will tell me I'm crazy anyway. But then also just to say you need to register for VAT from day one, and you must collect VAT from day one. There is no threshold. You've chosen to be an efficient chip business or a hot food business. This is the out-of-home food business. So this is what you have to do. And I think then at least then it's a level playing field. Everyone's on the same start line. And I think because if a shop opens down the road from you and they decide they're not going to tell HMRC until they're 120,000 because why not? Let's go a bit further. I don't know if there's a trigger mechanism that kicks in where HMRC know anyway. But, they might say, well, you know what, we're going to close lunchtime so we can stay under the threshold. And again, that is a barrier for growth. If all of a sudden...
It's that barrier for growth, that would be my argument. It very much depends on your business. If you're maybe as an owner-occupier, husband, wife running the business, maybe they get enough out of it if they stay below the VAT threshold. But I do think it limits your growth. But unfortunately, as I said, there are a lot of businesses that still operate within the black economy, and I still get staff. I'll interview tomorrow, and you'll be sure at least one person tomorrow will say, well, can I get paid under the counter, because I'm claiming benefits, I'm doing that. And I'll just say, no, go and find something else to do. It's not fair on the rest of the people who are working. All my staff, they pay their tax, they pay their national insurance, and all the hours they work, we're in real-time payroll now. So that's just the way it is. If I have to charge slightly more, then I'll charge slightly more. But it is frustrating when you get people, good people coming to you and saying, yeah, but can I get paid 50% of what of my wages under the counter? And it's just not worth the risk. I have no interest in doing it now at all. I think it's foolhardy. But I do think it limits growth if you start saying that, I'll just operate below the VAT threshold.
Well, the problem is for anybody listening that is, engaged in this sort of, this situation, whether it's willingly or unwillingly now because they're trapped. The problem is that type of staff member has always got you over the barrel, because if you upset them, they can leave and go tell, DWP, Department of Work and Pensions, they can tell them all of this. Oh, they'll just turn it all around and say they forced me to be cash in hand and so on and so on, because they're never going to admit that they wanted it. So, you can sleep at night if you pay the appropriate, rates of tax and VAT.
We pay what we owe. We complain bitterly about it, but we complain we pay what we owe. And, but the VAT bill is our single biggest cost. And without dwelling too much in the VAT, as I said, it is frustrating when your neighbour, 50 miles down the road is on 13.5% VAT and we're in 20%, and it's just, it doesn't make it a level playing field.
Is the Republic of Ireland, does the Republic of Ireland have VAT on normal food ingredients at the supermarket?
They're normally about 22 or 23%. I can't quite remember, but don't quote me on that. But they're in around that sort of level. But hot food comes under, and a number of categories come under sort of a special banner. And it's dropped down to
because
13.5. I think parts of Europe are like that as well. I think, very much so.
That is true. But the difference is in, let's say, France and Germany, I think, is that general shopping. So if you was to go to Tesco or their version of Tesco, I'm sure there's a Tesco over there now that I've just said that. If you was to go to a supermarket and buy, let's say, chicken, vegetables and tinned veg, for argument's sake, tinned fruit, that also has VAT on as well. Whereas I don't think that is not the case in the UK. And I know it's not the case in Northern Ireland as well. Yeah. So, and this is why I think the argument for spreading VAT across more categories makes more sense to me, because...
Yeah, no, I think that's a very practical solution. Go and speak to Richie and see what you can resolve for us.
I'm sure they would throw me out the minute I walked onto the road of where the house is on Downing Street. I wouldn't even be allowed in. But no, I think. But look, it's an election year. Election third quarter of the year by the looks of things. And if they're not talking about it now, are they ever going to talk about it? I just think if you're not going to bring up, and there's so many, reading on VAT, we've written so many articles on VAT. The textiles industry hate their VAT rate. Everyone hates the way that VAT's applied. So I think, is someone in government from either side or any side, is anybody willing to bite off something quite juicy like that? And I just don't think they are, because I think it's the same as business rates. I think it's almost like it's a thankless task. If you do it, you don't really get thanked by anybody, and you don't get more votes. You just upset people. So
I think the UK still has a rollover and accept it mentality. The raising of the pension age went through with virtually little issues, no street protests. Look at France by comparison.
Yeah.
It was absolute riots. And I think we're in the UK, we just have this acceptance
and in France, I think,
so.
And their rate is a lot younger than the British rate. I think they're like 62. It's just gone up to 62.
Yeah. I mean, my wife should have had her pension 2 years ago. I should be getting mine in 2 years, but I'm not. Neither of us are getting it until we're 67 now. So I'm not counting on it.
Yeah, I think you are right. There is this, like in Greece and Cyprus. Like I remember, like they passed this. Like, have you ever heard of PDO? So.
In Greece and Cyprus, they probably get their pension when they're about 25. So.
Well, they get two, because there's a name that they faked as well. So someone else is.
I know.
But no, the interesting thing, like they were passing a law in Cyprus, or PDO, so predictive an origin thing, so about halloumi, and they agreed that the recipe for halloumi should be cow's milk, and all the goat sheep. So the milk farmers for sheep went mad, because the original recipe should be sheep. So what do? Okay. They get all the tankers of sheep's milk and just tip it over government buildings and spray it everywhere. And yet in England, if someone did something like that, I think they'd politely write an article or something at the most. That'd be it. Like, you are right. There is this sort of rollover mentality in the UK. But I do.
Just out of interest, you mentioned halloumi. I put halloumi fries on our new menu. We launched it a number of weeks ago, and we take strips of halloumi, not quite fish finger size, but of a similar size, and we lightly batter them and serve them with a dip. And I have to say, they are lovely.
It's weird how halloumi has taken the UK by storm. Like the last 3 years, and I'd probably put a lot of the emphasis on it from the likes of Nando's. I think for years they had it on, and they just plugged away. And but yeah, it's such a big thing. Like I get so many halloumi companies from Cyprus message me, because they're like, oh, they probably assume that I'm into frozen food as well. So like, oh, can we do halloumi? And I'm like, no, ring this guy, because there's a guy that I know really well who's into frozen, and it is mad. How a relatively mild flavored cheese that if you overcook doesn't taste great is doing really well. It is. But I don't mind. It's good for Cyprus, and it's good for all the copycats, I guess, that copy as well, because everyone has their version of halloumi. So the Turks have got halim, the Lebanese have got something similar, and so on and so on. So it's. What do you think?
We just simply took it and do it in a very light batter and serve the dip, and I have to say it's really tasty.
Yeah. Have you added lots of different things to the menu to try different things, or not really?
Yeah, we're always trying to evolve. You have your staples. Recently, we introduced a Bigfoot, which is a particular brand of sausage and they're very, very good. They're a local Northern Irish producer. Mooney's, I can mention their name.
Yeah.
And they do a foot-long sausage, which served in a soft bap. And as I said, Eddie's quite innovative, coming up with recipe ideas. So we only launched them recently, and they've gone down really well. So, but again, it's something that we're able to price, around $6.50-ish. But it's a fairly substantial meal for that, So, and you have decent margins on it. Obviously, there's some things you don't get good margins on, but you don't get bad margins on it. So it's trying to be innovative with your menu and trying to come up with things that the public want, but at the same time, being able to offer it at good value, but you get the margins you need to keep your doors open, basically. And that's it has been a struggle, but we're pretty good at what we do. And between Stephen, Linda, myself, and even my wife as my moral support, we've been doing it long enough, and we're good at tweaking things whenever our backs are against the wall. And certainly the last 5 years, everybody's backs in the hospitality industry have been against the wall. So, but it's the companies that that get through it, and you either get through it by efficiencies or by creating a menu that the public want, keeping your shops fresh and attractive looking. And continue to work on our brand. It's I pay a guy to manage my social media for me, and he does that very well. And I said he's quite creative, and we come up with different things and post different things. So it's just trying to keep the name out there, and try to stay at the top of the tree, as much as we can. You always come up with competition. Some competition is very good, some of it's not so good. Most of the competition tends to be, as I said, independent owner-operators. We don't have any big fish and chip shop brands in Northern Ireland. Harry Ramsden's did open up, but didn't last terribly long. There's a few companies from the south have come up. Supermax being one, and again, they come up with the intention of opening 20 stores, and they left after one or two with their tails between their legs.
So, really?
Just different models work in different places.
The product is completely different over the south, though, if I'm completely honest. I think the fried fish and chips that you guys do is a lot closer to what we do. Well, it's almost exactly the same as what we do on mainland. But, everyone that's ever messaged me from Republic of Ireland, they're cooking their fish that morning or the night before, and they're leaving it on racks and they're double frying, which you guys don't do with fish.
No.
So I think that's one of the things that's always baffled me, how they got into that.
Supermax are a big outfit down south, and a very successful outfit in the south of Ireland. Abracadabra, another Southern Irish company, very good. There are a few chains of fish and chip shops. Leo Burdick's is very good. It would be more along the traditional Anglified route. But it is a different market, and they work an awful lot more with frozen products in all the shops that I've had experience with. But again, they've some excellent. I'm not averse to frozen products. I just some of our products are frozen, but an awful lot of them, a lot of the stuff we use is fresh. There's the market's changing so much. And you're going to even look at some of the frozen chicken products they're offering now, the wings and all the different spices they have involved. It's changing all the time.
You've got to stay nimble in business. You can't say to yourself, I'm never changing. You've got to go with what customers want to some degree.
Yeah. There are some shops. One of the oldest shops in Northern Ireland, Spence's, is down the road, but he opens maybe at 4:00 and closes at 7:00. Nice. And he's happy with that. That's all he wants to do, but it's a very long-established shop, and it's synonymous with Belfast, as is Long's. Long's was another one that's very good. And more recently, obviously, John Lavery with Fish City, he's done exceptionally well, to a nice guy. So, it's been challenging, and I hope things improve, but I think we're in for another year or two of down the rocky road before we see any real turn in the business. But look, we're holding our own. We're at it 40 years. We've been doing it long enough, and as I said, we tweak things as we need to keep the business profitable. And we're very fortunate with the staff we have. As I said, it was just interesting looking back at how long some of the staff have been with me. So. And they are my biggest asset. They really are, and I hope I have a good relationship with all of them. And the managers are all stars, and they pretty much self-manage their own units, So
all the time I've ever spent with your team has always been professional, polite, very honest and open. But the way that you can tell they look after that business like it's their own, and I think that's
they take complaints very personally as well. As do I, and that's probably the hardest thing in your business. No business is adverse to having a complaint. We can put out a bad meal, as can anybody else. When you're working with nearly 100 staff, mistakes can be made, but and the staff hate it as well. So I always say, the staff are so disappointed to read your email if somebody has emailed in a complaint, and that's the truth. They really take it to heart. I'm very fortunate with the caliber of people I have, and long may that continue. So
no, definitely. Well, Mark, thank you for your time today, and we'd love to have you on again. I think if things start to progress with the elections and there's anything notable out there that might support business, then I think it'll be good to get you back on and look at the differences between mainland and what's going on over your side.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of grounds we covered. I think there's a lot more we could cover as well. But I think the main differences in summary are we probably pay slightly more for our goods in Northern Ireland. Particularly when all our potatoes are coming from England. We just can't grow potatoes in Ireland, which is a shame.
It goes against the stereotype, doesn't it?
It does, because we are considered to be a potato nation, but you just can't grow chipping potatoes. You might get a half of a field which chips really well, and then the other half of the field will either caramelize or the dry matter content will be wrong, and it's such an important.
It's weird that I think the majority of McDonald's potatoes for the UK come from Ireland, as in Republic of Ireland. So, is the soil different over there, or is it just McDonald's practices? Maybe.
Well, I don't know. When I say Ireland, I say the whole of Ireland. We can't buy chipping potatoes in Ireland. Full stop. As I said, you might get small pockets that could probably, but against the volume. I mean, I've been over to the Isle of Ely, and the volume that they're putting through. I mean, Northern Ireland is typically made up of smaller farms, with smaller fields as such. So there's probably more labour involved in it as well. But
it makes sense.
Primarily, it's climate, but things do cost us a wee bit more. From energy to your food costs. As I said, on the upside, we have a fairly heavy, a strong public sector over here, so that gives people stability of income. Northern Ireland's not a bad place to live. We have a good standard of living. Even from houses and everything. The house prices are not as severe here as they are in parts of England. But then salaries are retrospective, it's all relevant, so. But yeah, challenging times. But look, we're still here, we're still kicking, and hopefully I will go on for a few more years yet.
I'm sure you will. I'm
I'm looking forward to my next site because I really think it'll be a really good site, and that's exciting. That's the exciting part of the business, opening up it's not without its worries and sleepless nights, but it's so exciting to create something from an empty shell and turn it into a thriving business. And you get a lot of pleasure out of that. As I said, we're at a stage in our lives, we don't need any more income. We're mortgages are paid off, everything like that there. So, we don't need as much. So you do it for the love of the job, not because you want to be richer. And you also want to provide job security for your staff. You want to create opportunities for your staff in terms of, people have an expectation to rise up through the ranks. We are limited, but I'll have a new shop. And truthfully, at this point in time, I don't have a manager to go into the new shop. We've had a couple of changes in that area recently, and the people coming through are just a wee bit off where they need to be. But we'll have a good hard look at it when we open it. And,
fantastic.
But I don't intend to be doing too much more cooking. My cooking days are done, I think. So.
Yeah, it makes sense. No, you hang up your apron. That's it. You can just train others now.
Yeah, the last time I went in to cook, Kat, who you know very well, one of the young fish fryers of the year, she quietly pushed me to one side. She said I was too slow. So I've never let her live that down.
Oh God, that's funny. That's funny.
But, I've done my shift at the coldface, so I think
No, you deserve it now. Yeah, exactly.
Bit of time to sit back. But look, it's we still have to manage the business, run the business. Are we more efficient at doing that? Yeah, we probably are. But every day throws up something. So
yeah.
I had a fire last week, a minor fire, just a leak in one of the pans. That created a bit of a drama. I'm gonna have to close for a day next week to actually replace the pan. I have a new range going in the following week. I've interviews to do tomorrow for staff, so I'm never at a loss for something to do. I can always keep myself busy.
Ain't that true? Well, Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll talk again.
Okay, thanks very much, Stelios, for inviting me, and most enjoyable. Okay, thanks, now.